Hi, welcome to the News Reporter's Guide to a police shooting. Today we're going to examine the question of why is there sometimes a delay between the time of the shooting and when the officers involved in the shooting give their statements or are interviewed by investigators. The intended audience for these videos are members of the media who are interested in or have to report on a police shooting and need background information to accurately and fairly report on that type of event. I'm your host, Andy Cooley. I'm a lawyer practicing here in Seattle. I've been representing police departments and police agencies, police officers since 1985. I've represented them in state and in federal court, in civil rights cases, in coroner's inquest trials. I represent them. I go to the scene of shootings and work the aftermath of shootings on behalf of the agencies and their officers. And so I have this background and training that I can provide this information to people reporting on cases. I'm not speaking here on behalf of any of my clients, any of my police officers or their departments. This is merely information that I provide to members of the media so they can accurately and fairly report. One of the questions that sometimes comes up in the aftermath of a shooting is why did the officers involved in the shooting, why did they delay in either being interviewed by the shooting investigating team, or why was there a delay in giving narrative statements regarding the events? There are two reasons why there's often a delay. One reason, and it's a less important reason, is that there's some information to suggest that people involved in a very traumatic event will benefit from 1 or 2 sleep cycles that will help them consolidate their memories, sort of distill the emotions of the event, and allow for a more accurate, factual recitation of the events. And there's some good science that supports that idea, but that's a secondary reason. The primary reason that there's a delay in obtaining statements from the officers involved in the shooting has to do with the idea of a compelled statement. So police officers are like any other citizen. They do not surrender their rights simply because they have become police officers. And so if they've been in a shooting and somebody wants to interview them, they have the right to decline to give a statement. Just like any other person under the Fifth Amendment, when the government wants to interview them, if they're potentially a suspect in a crime, they can decline to give a statement, and any statement they do give might be used against them in a court of law. So police officers, just like that, there's been a death, that's a homicide, and the question is it a justified homicide, or could the police be prosecuted? And so police officers involved in a shooting can decline to give a statement. They can say, I exercise my rights under the Fifth Amendment, and I do not want to give a statement to you. Now, the question then becomes, well, they work for the police department. Can't the police department order them to give a statement? And the answer is yes. Police departments can order people involved in a shooting to submit to a statement, to give an interview, to write up a narrative statement. The real issue is once you compel a statement from a police officer, what are the risks to the criminal justice system if you want to prosecute that officer? So to understand this risk, you have to understand a 1967 U.S. Supreme Court case called Garrity versus New Jersey. And in that case, some police officers were suspected of a potential crime. They didn't want to give a statement. They were ordered to do so under a penalty that they might be disciplined on the job or maybe even terminated from their job. And the Supreme Court held that if you're given that kind of choice, keep your job and give a statement, or stand on your Fifth Amendment rights and potentially get fired, and you give a statement, then it's effectively coerced or compelled by the government. Now, once the government coerces or compels a statement from you, there are real consequences to the ability to prosecute somebody. Because a compelled statement can't be used, of course, in the prosecution. More importantly, if the compelled statement is used then by investigators to advance their investigation in any degree, then the whole prosecution is tainted by the compelled investigation and the criminal charges can be thrown out. You might remember in the 1980s, then Colonel Oliver North was compelled by Congress to give televised testimony regarding what was called the Iran-Contra affair. And after that, the U.S. Department of Justice tried to prosecute Oliver North for those activities. And the court, throughout his conviction, on the grounds that since he'd been compelled by Congress to give testimony and the prosecutors could not prove beyond a reasonable doubt that that compelled testimony didn't influence other witnesses, the prosecution itself was tainted and his conviction was thrown out. So if you're a police department and you're looking at that, you have to make a decision. If I'm going to compel a statement, then I'm going to have to basically give up on the ability to prosecute anybody regarding this shooting. And that is a reason why most departments delay waiting to compel a statement, because they're trying to figure out, am I going to be in a place where I'm going to have to try to prosecute the police officers for illegal use of force, or do I believe that this is likely to be a legal and justified homicide, in which case I can compel a statement and not have my ability to prosecute ended. So the delay that occurs is mainly because police administration and police chiefs are trying to be respectful of the potential for a criminal prosecution. That should be considered in every police shooting, no matter what the circumstances, and understanding that if they compel a statement too early, they may foreclose the ability to bring that criminal prosecution. So this is the primary reason there's a delay often between the day of the shooting and the statements from the shooters, is because of this need to keep the options open for a criminal prosecution. Even if that's not likely, it's something you want to always have the option to bring. So I hope this has been instructive about why there has been a delay. Thanks for watching.